The idea was to make a dramatic case for campaign finance reform. But when a man landed a gyrocopter by the U.S. Capitol this week, it raised other questions like whether the Capitol is really secure and why a newspaper that knew about the stunt didn't try to stop it. Adam Riley has more.
Say this for Florida man Doug Hughes. He knows how to make an entrance.
He landed right here in the shadow of the Capitol dome.
Hughes took to the skies and then the grass to make the case for extreme campaign finance reform. Whether he helped his cause is debatable. So is the way the Tampa Bay Times covered his stunt.
He was trying to arrest the 24-hour news cycle and turn the attention of everyday Americans to what he thinks is the biggest issue in politics today.
Times reporter Ben Montgomery spoke with Hughes before his flight and turned that interview into a slick video feature.
I'm not suicidal, and I'm not going to commit suicide, and I'm not going to fly into any monuments.
But while Montgomery traveled to Washington to cover Hughes' landing, neither he nor anyone else from the Times warned federal authorities until just before Hughes touched down.
It's not my job to pull the plug on somebody who's doing something like this.
But what if Hughes had been stopped by force?
Do you let him fly around or do you shoot him down?
Or suppose he'd injured a bystander. In either case, the Times' hands-off approach is hard to defend.
Now, I got to say, I find this rather stunning. I don't know how you feel about it, Tom. You were down at the Miami Herald for a long time. It just seems like that the reporter was so intent on having this story that it never dawned on him that this was something he should have alerted authorities to. And he seems nonplussed by it still.
Yeah, this was a brain burp, I think, by the St. Pete Times or the Tampa Bay Times now. And the larger issue, and it's really a serious one, is what is the role of the news business when you find out that someone is going to act in a way. I mean, going back to the Vietnam War, where we had the monks attempting to protest against the government in Vietnam, and they would go tell the Associated Press that we're going to be out there in the square, we're going to pour gasoline on ourselves, set ourselves on fire. And that the question was, well, what do you do as a reporter? Do you try to stop that from happening? Once you see it happen, do you try to interfere and keep it up? These have been issues that we wrestle with. This was actually a relatively benign one, although I think the concerns, the security concern is a major one, but the other was it would be so easy in those things for something to go wrong and have that crash in a crowd of tourists.
Or have him shot out of the sky.
Yeah, somewhere along the way, the Tampa Bay Times should have said, look at, we're going to, we'll publish something in advance or something, but we cannot just remain silent and wait for the event to happen.
One of the ironies of this is that the Tampa Bay Times, which is an excellent paper, is owned by the Poynter Institute, which concerns itself with media ethics. And Poynter weighed some of the people at Poynter weighed in on this, and the tone was more in sorrow than in anger, I think.
Well, they were the only ones that were critical, though. I mean, it's like, where was it? There's no outrage. It seems.
Yeah, I don't understand why there isn't more outrage about this, because it is true that the Secret Service was aware that he might do something. They had paid him a visit at some point in the past, and the Tampa Bay Times did try to verify that. But when the time comes and you know he's going to do it today, you don't know exactly what he's got in mind. And I think that they should have tipped off the authorities certainly 30 minutes before he landed in Washington.
Well, I just think it's, I really struggle with this because it's really not our responsibility, I don't think, and to your point, he had been interviewed, they were aware of him, he didn't make a secret of it, he told everybody, I'm building this thing, I'm gonna fly to the Capitol. Now, why a Secret Service that has to be concerned about these things is not on top of that more, and he's not on some very short list of somebody who is known to want to get on the Capitol grounds. I mean, I know they have a long list of all kinds of crazies, but I'm talking about this guy said, I'm going to the lawn. That's where I'm going. I don't understand that. So, should the Tampa Bay Times have said something? Certainly once he was in the air. I think that's right. But before that, I think my emphasis was on the lack of security, and they seem not to have their game together.
We don't know if they had their game together or not. I mean, they might have not shot him down out of the sky because they knew he was coming and knew exactly who he was and what he was up to. Dan, I think they actually did know what his plans were. He had these letters he was going to, attempt to deliver to members of Congress, saying that we need extreme campaign finance reform. I think it was pretty clear that he wasn't going to try to, drive into the Capitol or something like that. And I actually think, in terms of the notion that there's a compulsion to report, I think it depends on what the actor in question is going to do. If they have an intent of harming someone, then certainly if you're a media member who knows that a murder is going to be committed or something, you should tell the police. This guy didn't have that intent. He wanted to draw attention to what he thinks is a really problematic political issue. So, I think it's fortunate he wasn't hurt and that no one else was hurt. But I am actually on Callie's page here. I think there's far more ambiguity on this issue than,
We learned after the fact that he meant what he said he was going to do, but we didn't know that ahead of time.
Yeah, you don't really know. Just because he might have attempted to something a little bit more dramatic or violent.
Well, he had this history. His son had committed suicide in a very dramatic fashion, and I think had that come out, you really would wonder whether there's whether he's grief-stricken. You don't know if there's another message he was trying to convey.
This is true.